Hello, this is Mrs. Ross, and I wanted to give you kind of an overview of what our next unit's going to look like. It's going to look very different than the units we've done before this one. So I wanted to kind of give you a heads up, kind of walk through some of the different sections, um, and yeah, just so that you're ready. And if you have any questions, of course, please make sure that you ask. Our next unit is Earth, Moon, and Celestial Cycles. Celestial means heavenlies or in the sky. So we're talking about eclipses and tides and everything that involves the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon and the relationship that they have. Now, you do have a science book. However, we're only using it as a reference guide. We're using it for its glossary. We're using it as a research piece of research, I guess we could use it to research information, because most of what we're going to do will either be on the computer or on paper. And I'll show you what that means here in just a second. But I'll be providing all of the materials that you need and the information that you need to complete and discover the Earth, Moon, and celestial cycles. So one warning, and you're going to see this repeated in my presentation: do not get behind. This unit moves very fast, and if you miss a day, you miss a lot. So it's not difficult. I think you're going to find it easier than what we have been doing. Maybe some of it maybe not, but it runs along at a pretty good clip. So if you miss something and think, oh, I'll just do that tomorrow, or I'll just do that, the next thing you know, you're 5 assignments behind, and at some point I won't take late work. So, if it's more than a week. So that's not good. So please, I cannot stress enough not to get behind. I also suggest you ask lots of questions, all the questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions about the content. Don't hesitate to ask questions about what's due or when it's due. You will still have your weekly lesson planners, and obviously we'll still be on Schoology, so you'll have all of that, all of those resources available to you. But don't hesitate to ask questions when you don't understand. Okay, so as far as assessments go, like quizzes or tests, we will have a quiz every 3 lessons. There are 15 total lessons in this unit. And you can use all of your materials. You'll have notes, you'll have a reading passage, you'll have an interactive notebook activity, you'll have homework. Well, it's called homework. You can do it in class if you can get it done. But you will have a quiz every 3 lessons. And then there's a comprehensive test at the very end of the lesson that you can use all of your materials. So it's important to keep everything that you have that's graded because you can use it. Have I mentioned that you don't want to get behind? Please remain caught up, or it will be a sad case for both of us. It's not an easy lesson to learn. It's a pretty painful lesson to learn, but I'd much rather you learn it in 6th grade than in like 10th grade. So, but I'm trying to give you a warning. I'm truly trying to show you that it will help you tremendously if you remain caught up in this particular unit. Mini assessments. So at the end of each lesson, there's a mini assessment. It's about 5 to 7 questions. You can use all of your information to answer it. And then we have those lesson quizzes every 3 lessons. Because we just have one giant test at the end of the unit, I take all of the quizzes and I make that a quiz grade. Or I'm sorry, I make that a test grade. I combine it to make a test grade. So what does a lesson consist of? So each lesson will start with a reading passage and 5 questions. So it has an article that introduces the information, whether it be gravity or seasons or weather or the tilt of the Earth or eclipses. It's got a reading passage that gives you information and questions to answer. And then you have notes that come from a PowerPoint presentation. You're going to find these notes an awful lot easier than the notes that you have that come from the book. Then you have what I call a bell ringer. You'll use those notes in that reading passage to answer the bell ringer. It's just like a questions, I'd say 3 to 4 questions, maybe a couple of vocab. And you can do that in your spiral. You can do that online, or you can do that on the paper. It doesn't matter to me, and we'll talk more about that. There will be at least one interactive notebook activity for each lesson. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 3, and that's what you'll use your spiral for. We'll talk more about the spiral as we get into it. There is a homework assignment. Just because it's called homework doesn't mean you have to wait and do it at home. You're welcome to do it in class. I also want to remind you that you have an independent study time, and I'll be using that time as well. So just to make sure, let you know that that's available. There's a mini assessment at the end of the lesson, so you can use your notes, your reading passage, bell ringer, interactive notebook, homework, all of that you can use on your mini assessment. And then there are 2 reflection questions. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But I did want to remind you that for reals, you do not need to get behind. Like, I'm not exactly sure how I can make this point other than to make it several times. But you will probably have homework in this unit or work that you actually have to do at home as you get used to the pace of the unit. You're going to find that you're going to think it's fast. You're going to think it's too much. And once you get your feet underneath you, you're going to think it's fine. So I've been teaching these units for a while now. So that's kind of how it progresses. There's a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning. You will survive. Exceptions. Okay, so I talked about the interactive notebook where there can be 1 to 3 interactive notebook activities depending on the lesson. And then on the reflection, which is on the back side of the mini assessment, there are 2 questions. One question is specific to the content. It's kind of like a short answer question. And then the other question is general, and it's like this every time. You get to choose your prompt for that question. Now, I'll post this every time we have a reflection, but these are the generic prompts. You know, you can summarize what you learned, you can draw a picture, you can do a graphic organizer, do a chart. How does it apply to life? Do you have a personal connection? You can write a poem, whatever you want to do, but it has to refer back to that lesson, okay? Also, you have a choice. So these lessons can be either completely digital or completely paper, whichever one that you prefer. And what I did with 8th grade was I let them choose, and I'll let you guys choose as well. And you may originally choose digital and then decide, I can't keep up with the digital. I need to go to paper, and we can put it back to paper. It's not, once you make a decision, it doesn't mean it's that way forever. I want you to use the mode of instruction that helps you the best. So if you choose paper, all of the activities are paper, and you submit your completed activities to the box. I grade them, put them back in your box, and you have them back. If you choose digital, most of the files are fillable PDFs or PowerPoint presentations, and you'll need to open these files and immediately save them on your OneDrive. Then you can fill them out. Once you've completed the activity, you submit the digital activity in Schoology. And then there are 2 items that are in your spiral. The bell ringer, if you choose to do that on paper, you'll do that in your spiral. And then the interactive notebook, everybody has to do in the spiral, whether you choose paper or digital. Another reminder, just to make sure that I've mentioned at least once or twice, that it's super important for you to stay caught up. And I'm hoping that you do believe me. And then lastly, there's a couple of different things that every lesson will have. Well, not every lesson. Well, every lesson will have a biblical integration discussion. And then several of the lessons, I believe you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 different labs that are kind of sprinkled throughout. So we may do 2 lessons in a lab, a lesson in another lab, that kind of thing. So I'm excited to go through this with you guys. I think you're going to enjoy it. And if you have any questions, let me know.